Imagine waking up tomorrow and discovering that every piece of clothing on Earth has disappeared. No shirt, no trousers, no shoes, not even one suspiciously lonely sock. At first, this might sound liberating. Then you step outside. The ground cuts your feet. Mosquitoes find an all-you-can-eat buffet. And if it is winter, your body starts losing heat fast. Meanwhile, almost every other mammal arrives properly equipped. The wolf has fur. The bear has fur. Even the sheep is already wearing the material you plan to steal. Humans are the strange exception. We are an almost hairless ape that spread from Africa into deserts, mountains, frozen plains, and Arctic coasts by wearing the skin, fur, and later the fibers of other living things. But when did this begin? Who was the first person to look at a dead animal and think, I should put that on? The problem is that prehistoric clothing usually rotted away. Stone survives. Bones sometimes survive. Underwear does not. So the answer must be rebuilt from ancient tools, animal bones, migrations, and the genetic history of lice. Yes, lice, one of humanity's greatest inventions, may have been dated with help from one of humanity's least popular passengers. To understand why humans needed clothing, we first need to ask why we did not already have a natural coat. Compared with other apes, humans appear almost naked. We are not completely hairless, but most body hair provides little insulation. Exactly why this happened is debated, though heat control is the strongest general explanation. Early humans became active walkers and runners in warm, open environments. Movement produces heat, and thick fur traps it. Humans developed an effective cooling system, exposed skin, many sweat glands, and less thick hair blocking evaporation. That was excellent under a hot sun. It was terrible on a cold night. Evolution had created an ape with advanced cooling and poor factory-installed insulation. When temperatures dropped, humans needed another solution. There was probably no single moment when clothing was invented. No prehistoric tailor announced a new winter collection. The first step may have been simple. Someone placed an animal hide across the shoulders. A skin could block wind, provide shade, or work as a sleeping cover. But a fresh hide is wet, greasy, and quick to rot. So people had to scrape, stretch, dry, and soften it. The earliest methods are unknown, but clothing was not simply found in nature. Humans had to transform part of an animal into technology. A badly prepared hide was a rotting burden. A properly worked hide was portable shelter. The oldest garments disappeared, but some tools survived. At Contrabandier's cave in Morocco, archaeologists found shaped bone tools dating from roughly 120 to 90 years ago. Several resemble later tools used for preparing hides. Researchers also found cut marks on carnivore bones, suggesting that some animals were skinned for fur, not only meat. This does not prove that someone owned a fitted jacket, but it is strong evidence of systematic processing. Stone flakes cut hides, bone awls punched holes, and sinew or fibers joined pieces together. That allowed clothing to fit closer to the body. A fitted garment traps warm air while still allowing someone to walk, carry, and hunt. It is the difference between carrying a blanket and wearing a winter coat. Ancient tools still cannot date the first regular clothing, so scientists turn to a witness living much closer to the evidence. Head lice live in human scalp hair. Clothing lice, often called body lice, mainly live and lay eggs in clothing. Without clothing, their habitat does not exist. Genetic comparisons suggest that clothing lice split from head lice at least about 83 years ago, and possibly much earlier. That is not an exact date for the invention of trousers. Genetic clocks contain uncertainty, but by then, clothing was probably worn regularly enough to create a permanent new home for a parasite. The evidence ladder is clear. Simple coverings may be older. Habitual clothing probably existed well over 80 years ago, and strong physical evidence shows hide working in North Africa between about 120 and 90 years ago. The earliest fashion critic disappeared. The earliest unwanted customer did not. A common picture shows nearly naked humans leaving warm Africa, reaching snowy Europe, and suddenly realizing they need coats. The real story was probably less dramatic. Africa has never had one uniform climate. Cold nights, high elevations, deserts, and glacial periods could all make coverings useful. The lice evidence and Moroccan tools suggest clothing may already have been established there, before humans entered the coldest parts of Eurasia. A light covering useful on a cold African night could later become fitted insulation for a Eurasian winter. Clothing also offered something fire and shelter could not. Fire warmed one place. Shelter protected a campsite. Clothing moved with the body. You could leave camp, cross open land, follow animals, gather food, and still carry a layer of warm air around your skin. Clothing made warmth portable. As humans moved into colder environments, simple draped hides became less useful. Wind entered through gaps and loose coverings shifted. Metal cutting and sewing produced sleeves, leg coverings, footwear, hoods, and layers. Much later, eye-bone needles made sewing finer and more controlled. Some of the earliest known examples date to around 40 years ago. Needles did not invent clothing, but they improved precision and made fitted garments and decoration easier. Neanderthals also used animal skins, though how fitted their clothing was remains debated because most material evidence vanished. Clothing was only part of a larger survival system involving fire, shelter, food, tools, knowledge, and cooperation. Once clothing became normal, humans did what humans always do. They made it complicated. A garment could be useful and still communicate information. Groups could cut skins differently or add shells, beads, teeth, pigments, and feathers. Clothing could now display identity, skill, status, role, or group membership. Wolf's fur mostly tells you that it is a wolf. A human coat might reveal someone's group, work, beliefs, or status. Clothing became a surface for communication, larger than jewelry and visible from across the camp. At some point, a person probably looked at a perfectly functional garment and decided it needs more shells. That may have been the beginning of fashion. There is also a famous answer to the question of clothing that does not come from archaeology. In Genesis, Adam and Eve are first described as naked and unashamed. After eating from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, they become aware of their nakedness and sew fig leaves together. Later, God makes garments of skin for them. This is not an archaeological timestamp, the first prehistoric clothing. It addresses a different kind of question. Cold is not the immediate reason Adam and Eve cover themselves. The change comes with self-awareness, shame, vulnerability, and their altered relationship with God. That shows how deeply clothing is connected with meaning. Humans do not dress only to regulate temperature. Clothing can express modesty, dignity, authority, grief, celebration, religion, work, rebellion, or belonging. A uniform is not mainly about warmth. A wedding dress is not mainly about insects. Mourning clothes do not reduce grief, yet all communicate something real. Archaeology asks when humans began transforming hides into protection. Genesis asks what it means for humans to recognize nakedness and feel the need to be covered. They are different explanations, but both show that clothing became far more than a response to cold. So why did humans finally start wearing clothes? There was probably no single reason and no single inventor. Humans lost most of the thick body hair that once provided insulation, probably partly because exposed, sweaty skin made cooling more efficient in hot environments. That helped us move without overheating. It also left us vulnerable to cold, wind, sunlight, insects, sharp round, and injury. Simple hides provided protection. Knowledge and tools turned them into fitted garments, and needles later improved sewing and decoration. And once clothing became part of daily life, humans used it to express identity, status, belief, modesty, and belonging. The first garments decayed, and their makers left no written explanation, but their tools survived. And their lice survived in our clothes. We began this story standing outside without a single piece of clothing, surrounded by animals wearing their own natural coats. The end, you are still the same almost naked ape. No thick fur grew back. Instead, humans invented an external skin, one that could be removed, repaired, decorated, traded, and changed with the weather, culture, or occasion. We did not evolve a better coat. We learned how to make one.